I've never heard you weigh security and the way you feel about somebody, and like it sounds like you love him. So do you want to like play it safe, or do you want to like kind of do what you do, which is follow your heart? I was going to end things with Daniel, and Pasha literally moved in like the next day, and we've been together ever since. For those who are listening, like, who are like, wow, she has this like beautiful relationship, she has it all figured out, like she and Pasha just like, you know, hashtag relationship goals.
No.
Well, that's not how it always was. I was living with a man for 3 years who I had no idea had been sleeping with, and I had enough video and photo evidence to count, because it was on his computer, 50 plus women in the last 2 years of our relationship. And it was crazy that that's what I needed to see to actually leave. I felt a sigh of relief when I found it. I was like, oh my God, this is a good enough reason to actually like break up with this guy. And now I'm thinking, like, what woman in their right mind wouldn't just break up with a guy that she's not happy or fulfilled with, or have an adult conversation and say, I think you're a beautiful human. You're one of my best friends. I really love spending time with you. Which all of those things were true. Like, he is an amazing, like, you were great friends with him, great person, you know. And I think just a lot of trauma manifesting itself in these ways from his childhood. And I didn't even have to forgive him for it. I actually had to forgive myself for staying so long in something that was unhealthy. And so for me, like, that was another big turning point of, I self-sacrificed so much in relationships, and I made the decision to really never do that again. And very quickly, like, I had an opportunity to build a relationship with someone like the following year, or like a year and a half later. And when I realized very early on, like, I really, like, I loved him. I actually had a lot of love for this guy. And, you
Did you
know,
have a lot of money?
he had a lot of money.
Okay, okay.
I
So that's
love
going to
that
be the
you have,
segue.
I love
Yeah.
that you have no filter, Cha. Yeah, so you know the story, obviously. And it was, well, I'll let you kind of chime in, because
Uh,
you probably
I
want to
think
take this somewhere.
absolutely, because, I think number one, everybody, like she didn't get to where she's at by just, dumb luck or just by, it wasn't perfect along the way, and I think that's a part of the story that is missing. And, I think that was a big milestone in when I saw that breakup happen, is I literally saw a Jessica that was just on an upwards trajectory. And going into the segue is, I think it's like when you met Pasha, right? Your husband now. And I remember always knew that it was going to be something like special, because every time you would call me, you would talk about Pasha, whether it's to like glow about it or complain about it. And I remember just sitting there one time, you were talking to me for 45 minutes. I'm listening. I'm like, man, I got to meet this Pasha guy. And I just remember you're like, oh my God, I'm late for work. Quick. And that was the moment that, like, I was like, man. And I remember first meeting Pasha in your house, and I was like, wow. And there was definitely some, not games, but there was definitely some ups and downs, ups and downs. And I remember watching it, but I think a lot of people misunderstood the relationship, but I always saw the passion. I always saw the passion. And that was
Yeah.
something, is like, I'm not jealous of a lot of things in life, but it's when I see that those couples have passion, like, I'm like, wow, like that's like, I was just looking through some photos, and I saw one where you and Pasha are looking at each other, and I'll send it to you later. And I was like, man, like, I want a girl to look at me like that.
Aw. Yes,
Yeah,
send it to me. Cha, you're
I will.
definitely going to find your amazing partner. I've already seen girls look at you like that, by the way. I
Yeah,
just think they haven't been ones where like you've reciprocated that amount of passion.
yeah. And I think there was like this balance, like it was almost like a game, actually. It was kind of like a game, because I remember, right?
There was definitely like, we had to find our balance in the beginning. There, we were both not, you know, as kind of like evolved as we are now in our who we are and what we want. We were young, you know, we were in our late mid to late 20s, still working out our traumas, still figuring out like our attachment styles, right? Because we both, like, you know, have our childhood stuff, and we hadn't done a ton of personal development yet. We were like on that the beginning of that journey. Um, but yeah, there was so much passion. And that's
Yeah.
actually like what I was going to mention earlier about like with Daniel, like once I realized that it wasn't it, like, and I had already started dating Pasha, kind of like went back, you know, and then started like stopped talking to Pasha, started dating somebody else. And as much as I like had like love and fun and could have been like such a great relationship, I knew that like I didn't feel the way that I felt about Pasha. And so I ended it like very early on. And
Well, also, you're forgetting also that everybody was telling you you were making a mistake. I remember that. Like, I remember everybody being on team rich guy. You know, I don't want to say his name. You know, like, but the thing is, it's like, you know, I remember it,
yeah,
right? And I
it's
remember
true.
it was a difficult situation for you. And when you made the choice for your now husband, like, I knew that was like at that point I was like, wow. You know, I had a cold read on the situation, and I was like, you know, and I just remember like the funniest thing about it was I remember, like, I don't know if I should say this, but the thing is, I remember
Say it.
when you got together, you were like, Pasha, you need to get a job. I remember that. I
Yeah,
remember
well,
that.
because he was like a poker player, you know, which he still is, but like,
Yeah.
you know, he was playing poker professionally for work. And I'm like, that's not gonna fly. Like, you know, we moved in together right away, and I, you know, nothing against that lifestyle. And obviously, like, you know, Pasha still plays poker, and now it's very different. But yeah, I made him go valet cars at Aria. Well, I didn't make him. That's like what he chose to do when I said, you have to get a job. Yeah.
But you know
Um,
what's funny is like I wonder like what it did for his confidence as a man, not only to get the girl from a really rich dude, right? A rich guy, right? And then not only that, but to know that you chose him for him, right? And not for anything else like money and stuff like that is like I have so many wealthy friends and like that are men and they're just so terrified of like meeting a woman who just likes them for their money, right? And so I wonder what it was like, you know, and what it did to build up his confidence and like, yeah, you know. Do you know what I'm saying?
I do. I think because, well, and first of all, I just want to clarify because there's probably hopefully going to be many people that listen and learn from this. You know, we keep saying team rich guy. So rich guy was not just rich. He was amazing and like an incredible person. And I don't want to just,
Amazing human being. Amazing
yeah,
human being.
no,
No,
I know.
no,
I don't want to reduce airplanes. I should probably do this
no,
inside.
it's okay. I can
I
barely
don't
hear
want
it.
to, I don't want to
A rich
reduce
guy with
him.
what?
I wasn't going to reduce him to just being a very wealthy human, but yes, amazing size, everything, and great in bed, and all the things. We send you so much love. Hope you're going to listen. But no, he was a great human, and so what I
And he
think what
found
you're
his
getting
soulmate
at
too.
too, what
And he found his soulmate.
found his soulmate, who he
Yeah,
actually was always in love with, and I'm so happy for.
yeah, absolutely.
But I think like what you're getting at is too like Pasha was not nearly, I think he was not financially stable. Like, hi babe, because I think he's listening. But Pasha was very much in debt, you know, without a job, without a plan, without a future. He had his vision for real estate, but he hadn't even started it. And you know what you're saying is I took a risk on him. So what did that do for his confidence? And likely it did a ton to be chosen that way, but I knew like there was so much love between us, and it was a scary risk for me because I had dated a lot of guys in the past where I was the financially stable one and I supported them, and like all of my relationships actually I had more money than the guys that I dated, always was in support, like, you know, whether it was like giving them money or like paying their bills, or if we lived together I was like the main breadwinner. And so taking that risk with Pasha felt like, am I just doing that thing where I self-sacrifice again because like I'm really into this guy? Like, do I have blinders on because like the sex is so good? And like, you know, Pasha and I like had an amazing chemistry and like passion and connection from the beginning. And I will share this really fun story. It was actually my dad who gave me like a good he gave me the best advice. It wasn't even advice, it was like a reflection. I've never asked my dad for advice about guys. It's not something we ever really talked about. Like, my dad and I are super close and I love him, but never like, Dad, I have a question about this guy. But I called my dad and I actually shared with him. Pasha wrote me a letter while I was still dating Daniel, and Pasha was like, I know that you feel the way I do. Like, I am totally in love with you, and I think you feel it too. And like, you know that this is what you want. Like, I promise, like, if you break up with Daniel, like, if you take this risk on me, essentially, like, I won't let you down. Because we did have kind of a tumultuous first year of knowing each other. Like, we were dating and we were hooking up, and then we weren't talking, and then it was like, don't call me anymore.
He
Like,
wouldn't talk to you, and then you wouldn't talk to him, and it was kind of like a back and forth. I just remember I was like,
yeah,
oh.
there was a lot of passion, and I think neither of us wanted a commitment is like really what was happening. Especially me. I had just gotten out of that 3.5 year relationship that was really toxic, and I met Pasha like immediately. I actually met him before, but started hooking up. Like, he was essentially my rebound. And I didn't want anything serious because before Mike there was Greg, and before Greg there was Ken, and I was a serial monogamist, you know? And I wanted to be single. And so in the beginning, when he wanted something, I was like, whoa, this is way too strong, way too soon. Like, hey, back up. So there was like some rejection there. But then about 4 months in of like, you know, casually hooking up, I developed feelings. And I was like, well, actually, I really do want a commitment. And he was like, oh, well, it's too late. So we had that whole thing. And, you know, he wrote me this letter and was like, I'm ready to man up. Like, I want to be with you. I want to have a family with you. Like, you are the one for me. And I called my dad and I was like, Dad, I don't know what to do. Like, on this hand, I have this great relationship that I'm developing and I really feel safe and feel seen. For the first time ever, I feel taken care of. Not just like, you know, not because of money, but because of like, this person was making so much room for me in their lives and it felt good. And then I had Pasha, you know, who was like totally a gamble, best bet of my life. You know, who was in debt, who didn't have a job, and who was like, you know, living this like, I'm a professional poker player life. And my dad said to me, he's like, well, I've never heard you weigh security and the way you feel about somebody, and like, it sounds like you love him. So do you want to like play it safe, or do you want to like kind of do what you do, which is follow your heart? Because my dad knows me so well. And I was like, you're right. And I remember I hung up with my dad, and I think it was like that night that I told Pasha, or like the very next day, that, you know, I was going to end things with Daniel. And Pasha literally moved in like the next day, and we've been together ever since.